All right, good morning, everyone. Good morning. Today is June the 10th. It's a Tuesday today. We had a little bit of a drive overnight here on the futures. The indices, at least for the SPY and Qs, remain basically unchanged coming to market open, but we'll talk about the futures and how we ended up taking out the overnight highs. We did quite a bit here in the after hours in regards to the trade talks potentially escalating between US and China here. Overall market on the higher time frame is still bullish. So we'll talk about the levels that we'd like to see the market hold. Besides that, we do have Tesla. It started bouncing yesterday here as well with kind of Trump and Elon. Trump kind of tweeted a few things. So Tesla is bouncing. We'll talk about the levels to look for here as well. All right, before we do that, good morning. What's up, everyone? Good morning. What's up, B Roots, Cupid, KO? What's up, Martin, Katrina, Paul, Damien, JT, Mayor? I think I pronounced that wrong. Mozzie. What's up, Robert, Jeff, Andreas, Ryan, Melissa? Good morning, Ricardo, Victor. What's up, Josh, Darth? What's up, Ashley? Daniel, Wayne, Daniela, Monty, Stephen, Henry, Brett, Jorge, 2D, 2H. What levels? We'll talk about the levels here in a second. What's up, Ray, Sven, Tim, Jose, Luis, Audrey, Carlos, Bara, Bob, I'm going to pronounce that one wrong. What's up? Good morning. What's up, Flying Trader? So glad you joined the Discord. Great. Lots of people and lessons. Glad you enjoy it. What's up, Darth? Okay. All right. Let's head straight into the charts here. Let's first talk about the SPY and Qs, and then we'll go over to the ES. So coming into today here, if we were looking at the SPY chart, so currently, as you can see, the SPY, it seems like we didn't really do too much in the after hours along in the pre-market here as well. If you look at Friday's session in comparison to yesterday's session here as well, you can see that these sessions, the range has been about 3 to 5 points here on the Qs and the SPY here as well. So it doesn't seem like we did too much here on the SPY. We are just holding my major level that we talked about yesterday, which is our 598.50s. You can see so far the market is holding up. But if you look at the futures chart, in this case, we can go over onto the ES. So the ES is the exact same thing as the SPY, but you just have a little bit more information. SPY only goes from 4 a.m. to 8 p.m. every single day. Whereas the ES, it's futures, so it's basically 24 hours a day, 23 hours to be exact. So for the ES, you can actually see if we're looking at yesterday's session, which is Monday's session, we actually ended up having this really big push into the overnight. This happened later into the day, and you can see we ended up having a nice push above. In this case, it's going to be your previous day highs along with your Friday's highs here as well. And then we ended up having a pretty big drop in the middle of the night back towards the downside. Still, the market is holding up, right? Higher lows are being built. Your 5992 is holding up. Now the market's fairly neutral. So we're about to open up right in the exact same spot we closed off at. In this case, we actually did quite a bit. We ended up taking out the high. We also ended up taking out the low here as well. We're about to open up in this similar spot. So for the SPY and ES coming into today, let's zoom out a little bit here on the higher time frames. If we go into the higher time frames, the market is very much still intact. What it's now really waiting for is the trade talks. The reason why we end up pushing overnight was the potential kind of escalation of the trade talks in between China and the US. So that's why we had that push. Now for the overall markets, you can see we're kind of building up this wedge pattern on the higher time frames. The market is still very bullish, but if we're looking at the markets, what really indicates if the market is how bullish or how much of a trend that we're in is the continuation above the swing highs. So far, every single time we've gravitated towards a swing high, we basically haven't had too much continuation above these swing highs, right? We took out the liquidity and we pushed back towards the downside. Similar thing. We pushed towards the upside and then it kind of started slowing down. Every single high that we've made so far has been somewhat rejected, but we're still bullish on the higher time frames because we are holding key levels. But this is a great example of, right, just slowly pushing higher, right? It's going to kind of gravitate higher slowly until we finally have some sort of news event, and then we're just going to end up launching back towards all-time high. So for the ES, as you can see, coming into today, the levels that we're going to have marked out is going to be this 6025. 6025 in this case is going to be the level that we're going to keep an eye out on. It's going to be your Friday's highs along with now it's going to be your Monday's highs here as well. Whenever we're in this type of trend, the best is to buy dips for, right, continuation towards the upside. So in this case, for the for the ES, what we like to see is really the reclaim above your previous day highs, which is going to be your 6025. Our 6025 is going to be the level we like to see reclaim if you want to see a push back up and towards your overnight highs. In my opinion, any trade coming to market open today within the first 15 to 30 minutes is going to be difficult just because we had a really big move in the overnight session. Whenever we have a big move in the overnight session, at least intraday, it makes it very much difficult, especially the New York session right off the bat. So within the first 15 to 30 minutes today, it is going to be a little bit more difficult to trade. You could be looking for, as I mentioned, the reclaim above your 6025, or now you'd be looking for the bounce off of your previous day lows, which is also a key level here as well, which is your 6008 here on the ES. So this is what I have coming into today on this ticker. If you go into the SPY, right, you can see the SPY, we actually don't have any of that information that I talked about here on the ES. So for the SPY, it's not showing that we ended up breaking above its previous day highs. You don't see really the overnight reaction. And now we're basically just opening up right in the exact same spot we closed off at. So for the SPY, whoever is trading the SPY, we don't have that information. Besides that, here on this name, I am very much bullish here on SPY. As I mentioned, every dip is getting bought up so far. We're still very much intact, right? Higher lows are being built in the market. As long as we maintain now, it's going to be above your 596. The most bullish level that we'd like to see it maintain is going to be this 598. So for the markets, you can see it's slowly building up higher and higher. And this is what happens when at least we push back towards the upside, right? Whenever you see a rally towards the highs, right, the markets, if you're moving on low volume back towards the highs, that's very bullish. So whenever you're dropping, and let's say you want the markets to stay heavy, let's say you're bearish in a market, you really want to see heavy selling, right? You want to see a lot of volume on the way towards the downside if you want the markets to continue lower, right? Especially if we're rising, right? We don't have to rise on a lot of volume. Generally speaking, if we have an uptrend and markets are rising on low volume, this is a very bullish sign that markets are going to have like a crazy move towards the upside. In this case, the levels that most people are looking for is going to be your all-time high. So for the SPY and the Qs, we're about 10 points away from your all-time highs here on SPY. For the QQQ, we're about 10 points away here from all-time highs as well, right? The markets are going to slowly gravitate back up and towards this level because this is going to be the draw on liquidity, and this is the level we can expect the markets to gravitate towards. So for the SPY, that's going to be the key area that we're going to eventually look for, is that previous all-time highs, which is your 611.46, at least for intraday price action. Right, coming into today, as I mentioned, it's going to be this 598, and now we can also mark out this level, which is going to be our 601. So we can get rid of this one in the middle. Now we can just draw this, which is going to be our previous day highs along with our 598. So this is the level we'll keep an eye out on the SPY. What we like to see, right, hold of your 598, bounce for a push back up and towards your previous day highs, or it's going to be the reclaim back above your previous day highs for a continuation towards the upside. So these are the levels we have marked out coming into today on the SPY and the ES. If we go into the NQ chart, this is the level that we kind of talked about. So today, here on the NQ, you can see we end up taking out your last week's highs here in the overnight session. So if you don't have the futures chart, you won't see this information. If you go into the QQQ, all you'll see is actually this pretty big wick here at 4 a.m. So Right here for the NQ, we end up gravitating up and towards your last week's highs. This was my main objective coming into yesterday, was if we can get above your previous day highs, the next level is going to be your last week's highs. So for the overall markets, we end up driving up and towards your Friday's highs. Had a couple reactions here, was not able to get above your Friday's highs as the Qs ended up taking out your last week's highs. We kind of just consolidated, but the overall market was still building up these higher lows. And then we end up gravitating up and towards your last week's highs here in the after hours. So in the after hours in your overnight session, end up taking out one of your key points of interest. You can see pretty sharp reaction here as well. Now for the QQQ and the NQ, we're opening up in almost the exact same spot we closed off at. So any sort of long positions you'll see now, you'd like to really see it above your 21.94, sorry, your 21.934. We also do have this level here as well, which is going to be our 21.858. But this level, right, if you look for the reclaim above your 21.858, it's going to be a little bit more difficult to look for this reclaim now, just because we already took out our main objective, which is our last week's highs. So this reclaim could very much fail, and we could continue lower. So that's why the best area for a long is now going to be above your last week's highs, right? If you can get above your last week's highs, this is very bullish for the overall market. If you try and look for a long above your 21.858, it could make a lower high, and we could continue back towards the downside. So really coming into this morning here for the NQ, levels I'm going to have established is going to be your last week's highs in this case. If we go on to the QQQ, key levels that I have, similar thing is going to be your 531 along with your 533 here as well. So for the overall markets, for the Qs, as I mentioned, what I like to see is really it get above your last week's highs. 533 is my key level. If you can get above your 533, this is going to be the best level to look for continuation back towards the upside. We could be looking for the hold of your 531.80, but since we end up taking out that key level here in the overnight session, the 531.80 is going to be an interesting level here for the Qs. So I'd much rather look for the reaction off your 533, right? If we're going to look for the break and retest towards the upside. If we're looking for bounces, right, then we can be looking for our 530. And then for the Qs, the bounce level that we have in this case, we can actually draw up brand new levels, but it's going to be this right here. Middle of the range, we have your 21.750. This is going to be the level we're going to be looking for potential bounces. At least for the overall market, right, intraday coming into this morning, I am fairly neutral, but higher time frames is still very much bullish. All right, let's go on to Tesla. So Tesla coming into yesterday, we ended up gapping down earlier into market open. I ended up having a nice rally right off the bat. So within the first really 15 minutes, right, bullish price action, and the flow was basically bullish all day after the first 15 minutes. So coming into today here for Tesla, the levels I have marked out was your 294. And we also have your 305 here. And then we have the outer range, which is going to be your 324 along with your 270s. So for Tesla, yesterday we opened up around your 284 along with news here as well. The bullish order flow was basically intact all day. And then we also had news later into the session regarding Trump and Elon. So you can see fairly bullish tape along with news as well. And now you can see we're actually gapping up here in the pre-market, basically back into the area that we dropped from originally. So for Tesla, the next logical level in this case is going to be back up and towards your 324 along with your 326. So if we mark out the levels, we have the low marked out. We're also going to have the high marked out here as well, which is going to be your 322.50. This is the level that we like to see now Tesla gravitate up and towards. So this is the level 324.50s. You can see this lower high was established right here. That's when we had the original kind of news that dropped it here as well. So if we go back onto lower time frames, or if we actually just zoom in on the chart now, the key levels we can also have marked out is going to be your pre-market highs. You can mark out your previous day highs here on this name. So you can mark out your previous day highs along with your pre-market highs. As for Tesla, what we like to see is one of two things. I personally would like to see a dip down in towards your previous day highs. Your 309.86 would be a nice level. You could be looking for a continuation back towards the upside, or now you'd be waiting for consolidation, dip, reclaim back up in towards your 318, or it'll be now the break above your pre-market high for a push up in towards this 322 here on the higher time frames. Either way on Tesla, now with kind of the news, we'd like to see it gravitate towards the top of the range, 324 here on this name. All right, so those are the levels I have for Tesla coming into today. Let's go on to Nvidia. Nvidia higher time frame yesterday. I kind of talked about my flat top potential wedge pattern that we do have here on the 1 hour chart. And you can see a lot of these names, right, lack of continuation above these old highs. That's a good sign. That price is still very much bullish, but you'd like to see it break above your 144 and hold. So for Nvidia, we end up having a gap up here on the charts. If I go on to the 15-minute time frame, we had a gap up. We end up holding your previous day highs right off the bat for a nice push up and towards your 144. But you can see how this daily candle closed, right? The daily candle close has to close above your 144 for continuation, right? The lower time frames, we end up having this nice push towards the upside, but ultimately we were unable to close above your 144. And this is what the daily chart looks like. If I go into the daily chart, a little bit of an upper wick, as you can see right here. So if we do want to see continuation, we're going to have to see a daily candle close above your 143. You can see upper wick here, another upper wick here on Nvidia. On the daily chart, if we do want to see continuation, we'd like to see a strong daily candle close above your 143. Let's go on to the lower time frames here. If I go back onto the 15-minute, right, the key levels that I personally have marked out is going to be this one. Let me actually just drag this over. The levels I'm going to have is going to be this 144 along with this 143.80. I would like to see a reclaim above this level if we're going to see any sort of continuation towards the upside. So right off the bat, right, if we consolidate, potentially break above later into the session, right, this would look good for me for continuation back up and towards your 144 and above. If it pops right off the bat, you have to be cautious of a potential kind of fade off your 144. But if we consolidate, as I mentioned, maybe break later into the session, we can look for the break and retest and reclaim back above your 144 for this push back up and towards your 144.70. If we go into Apple here, Apple just ranging in between our 205 along with this 200 key level. This also has our news event that's happening all week, our WWDC. So far, we're just ranging as expected, right? Rejected off the top of the range. The next logical level is going to be the bottom of the range, which is your 200. So Apple just ranging in between these levels, as I mentioned. What you can be looking for is a potential kind of bounce play coming into today. If we hold this level, you can see a push back up and towards your middle of the range, which is going to be your 203, and potentially the top of the range being your 205. As for other names, Microsoft, this one's at all-time high. So we talked about Microsoft for a while now. Now we can expect it to just continue higher above your all-time high. So all-time highs being your 468. As long as you maintain now above your 468, we can expect this one to continue back towards the upside. So for Microsoft, 473, right? We can expect this to continue higher as long as you maintain these levels. As for Meta, key levels I have coming into today is your last week's pivot high, which is your Thursdays, 694 here on Meta, holding here on Friday. Another touch here as well. As long as we maintain above your 694, I like to see, right, continuation towards the upside. Now the key levels I'm going to have marked out here as well is going to be this 702. So we have your 702 marked out. What I would like to see here on Meta, break above your 702, hold for this continued push back towards the upside. If we go on to the daily time frame, that's going to be the next key level, right? Down close candle. This is also a down close candle here as well. As for Google, we end up having a nice push towards the upside here yesterday. End up taking out one of our main objectives being our 178. So we actually haven't quite taken out this level here as of yet. But for Google, right, you can see kind of basing around our 168. Next level is going to be this 178 here on this name. What I do expect coming into today is some sort of reaction around this 178 key level. So yesterday we marked out our high that we created on Friday. Nice break above, hold above your 175, and a push back towards the upside. Now the key levels we're going to have established are 178.20. What we like to see is a reaction around this level. If we can hold above your 178.20, we can see this push back towards the upside. If we end up gravitating up and towards your 178.20, right, stays heavy, right, be careful of this potential kind of reversal just because we are taking out a major key pivot level, which is all the way back from May the 22nd. As for a few other names, Amazon, this one's looking very bullish now, a break above your 214. This is one of my favorite watches here as well. Coming into the week, key level is your 215, multiple touches here. Now we end up having a strong daily candle close. So you can see strong daily candle close on this name. Go back until lower time frames. Key levels I have marked out is now going to be your 215 along with your previous day highs being your 218. So we can draw this out. Key levels I have is going to be your 217. What you like to see really here on Amazon is right dip. And then we have that push back up and towards your previous day highs and above, right? You'd be looking for the reclaim. If it pushes higher right off the bat, you could also be looking for the potential immediate retest above your previous day highs on Amazon. As for AMD, I really like AMD, right? Daily candle closing fairly strong here. Next levels is going to be your 122 along with this daily gap all the way back towards your 125. So for AMD, right, kind of curling here, the daily chart, higher lows are being built, gravitating up and towards your 122. What I would like to see is really a strong daily candle close. We can see a nice potential move here on AMD if we can close above this 122 level. So for AMD coming into today, you can see yesterday's price action fairly bullish, holding our 119.50. Now what I like to see is higher lows be built. So far, higher lows are being built above your 121. I like to see a hold of your 121 for a push up and towards your 122.50. So as long as you maintain your 121.50s, I like to see a push towards the upside. Or now it's going to be the break above your 122.50s, which is your previous day highs, along with your high that we created back from Wednesday of May the 14th. So for AMD, I'm very much bullish on this one. I was bullish on semiconductors here, primarily AMD on the higher time frames, levels, as I mentioned, 122 along with your 121.50s. As for Netflix, key levels I have in this case is just your previous all-time highs. Key levels, let me actually just get rid of some of these. For Netflix, I just like to see hold of your 112.11 here on the daily time frame for a push back towards the upside. Not too much to talk about here intraday. But for the names I'm looking at coming into today, as I mentioned, it's going to be number one, if you get a Tesla potential, either pull back down towards your previous day highs or some sort of consolidation, you could be looking for the break above your pre-market highs to push back up and towards your 322. As for Nvidia, the level it's going to have to reclaim for me is going to be this 144. We can also mark out our previous day highs here as well. It's actually another level that we have. Let me actually just draw this. Is your 143. So we have a couple levels. We either like to see a reclaim, right? If it can hold your 143 potential area we could be looking for, or it's going to be the reclaim back above your 144. The best level is going to be this 144 key pivot level. So that's what I have for Nvidia. As for Microsoft, I expect this one to go higher. I do like the best charts I do like is Meta, hold above your 640, 694. Let me actually repeat that one more time. So for Meta, it's going to be your 694 or the break above your 703. And then Amazon, it's going to be the break above your 218 here. And then one of my favorite charts is going to be AMD. I like to see a hold of your 121.50s, or now it's going to be the break back above your 122.50s and your previous day highs here as well. Let me actually just mark out this level here for AMD. So these are the levels I have for this name. Okay, if you guys do have any charts, you guys can drop them in the chat and I'll go over them. Okay. If you guys do have any charts, you guys can drop them in the chat and I will go over them. If you guys are enjoying this so far, I appreciate if you guys drop me a like. Okay. See, good morning, everyone. Good morning. Bro, break and retest sometimes works and sometimes why not? What should I do? Right. So if you look for every single break and retest, you can technically look for any break and retest, any single time frame, right? That's why you have to develop a playbook and a system and what setups you should take. Right, so the break and retest in itself is good, right? That's a system we use, but what are the setups you're going to take within the break and retest? You're not just going to take any random break and retest. You have to have, right, unmitigated liquidity. Where's your draw that you're looking for? What's the actual setup that you're taking? Are you taking the 1 minute opening range? Are you taking an order block? Are you taking a key level? Are you taking previous day high and previous day low? Those are a bunch of the things that you have to account for along with your risk tolerance, time. To break it like basically like down to the most basic sense is that you have to develop really you want to stick to one setup. So one setup that you look for, either be your previous day high and low or your opening range. Those are the two of my favorites. And you're gonna basically stick to it. And until then, right, you want to stick to that setup and then potentially add into the setup later if you find consistency. There's no reason to look for every single strategy or every single setup if you don't find consistency in one. Blow off the top soon. I agree here as well. Do you use mental hard stops when you leave trailers, especially the ones that you leave overnight? You'd have a mental stop if you have that, right? Because you can't leave a hard stop overnight. Looks like a head and shoulders. I forget what chart I was on. Why 533 and not 534? Important highs on the Qs. 534. So 533 is what I have in the actual chart. 534 is a level that I don't have. That's the level that's based off of the QQQ, the overnight high here from Thursday. So for basically the Qs, this is your key level, 533. 534, you can also mark out your 534 here as well and potentially use that as a target. Should I loan my mortgage into Tesla before Robotaxi Day? Definitely not. If you're asking those questions, sometimes I'm not sure if that's a joke or not, but sometimes if you write that down, maybe you just need someone to tell you just to not do it. Okay. Let's see. IWM, MU, AMD. All right, let me go over some tickers here. IWM, key levels that we have on IWM. This one's breaking out. So if you look at the daily chart, breaking out here, let's actually remove a couple of things, right? Strong daily candle close here on Friday. Now we're pushing back towards upside, really to the area that we dropped off at. So for IWM, if I go back onto lower time frames, as you can see, let's go into the 15-minute chart. Key levels I'm going to have marked out now is going to be your Friday's highs. You also have here your previous day highs as well. So your 214. Coming into today here for the IWM, right now you can see we're kind of above your previous day highs now, right? Big break above your previous day highs. Hold for this continuation back up and towards the upside. As for levels above, you're going to have to mark out your daily levels. In this case, it's going to be your 215 along with this 215.80. If we're unable to break above your previous day highs and we reject, there's a possibility that we can come back towards the downside. Let's say we have a big push up, right? Fail with a lot of displacement, right? Next level is going to be back down and towards your pre-market lows in this 213.20s. MU. So a lot of the semiconductors, if you look at the SMA chart pushing back towards the upside here, I'm bullish on quite a few semis with Nvidia kind of leading its way back higher. For MU, once we're able to break back above this 86, the top of the range in this case is your, is this 108. 108, basically the top of the range. We had a bunch of levels and a bunch of reactions here off your 112. So for MU, basically went from the low, which is your 86, back up and towards your high, which is your 112. I do expect a little bit of selling here around this 112. So keep an eye out on this key level here on MU. If we can break above, what we'd like to see now is just a lot of consolidation and then eventually, right, the break above your 114 and a hold of that level. BTC. Why is it not popping up? So yeah, as for BTC, I was fairly bullish up and towards this all-time highs level. You can see, why is my charts not loading? But for BTC, we end up hitting your all-time highs a couple weeks ago with this big push towards the upside. You can see a little bit of selling here off your all-time highs. Now, right, higher lows are still holding and we're pushing back higher. So for BTC, nice reclaim back above your previous all-time highs. This one, we should see this push back up and towards now. It's going to be your new all-time highs, your 112, basically your 112.020. So for BTC, see nice reclaim. Now we're basing above your 110. What I would like to see is the hold of this level, right, higher lows and a push back up and towards your all-time highs. So this is the level I have for BTC. Hope your day is doing great. Want to ask for trading advice, either use support and resistance strategy you made on a previous tutorial. You got any day trading advice using support and resistance? Just a generic support. So support and resistance, right? Supply, they're all fairly similar. They're just kind of renamed concepts. The markets always move in kind of similar ways. So if you are looking at levels, right, just look at old highs, old lows, see how price reacts to those levels. And you'll see, right, just based off these charts, all these levels are just old highs and old lows here in the market. So for Palantir, if I'm drawing out levels, right now I'm going to draw your 134. This is just your previous all-time highs. And now we can use this as potential resistance. So we have, if we just draw this out, right, we have your resistance, we have your support, we have the middle, which is equilibrium. You can see how well Palantir is respecting these levels on the higher time frames and on the lower time frames as well. So for Palantir, now what we can expect is it to move back up and towards the top of the range, 133. Key levels I have coming into today on Palantir is going to be your previous day highs, 132.50s. So that's the level I have coming into today. As for a few other tickers, NVTS. So NVTS, I've been fairly bullish on here, right? Daily candle, right? Bullish. I think I talked about this on the weekly recap. I'm not exactly sure, but I mentioned kind of forming this wedge pattern. Next level is going to be back up and towards your 750, right? This one's holding up. Nice kind of base, right? Break above your 660s. And then they're pushing back up and towards your 750s and actually this level here as well. So their next level on NVTS is going to be this pre-market high level back from the 28th. Does seem like the market is gravitating towards that level as we speak. So you can mark out this level along with your previous day highs being your 790. So NVTS coming into today, right? You would like to trade it up and towards your previous day highs, but now we're back close to your previous day highs. We like to see consolidation, right? Break above previous day highs, hold for a pushback towards upside. What is your routine after you leave the pre-market? Just kind of marking up charts, really dialing in my top watches for the day, and then just kind of getting ready for market open. OKLO, talked about this one, kind of potential kind of cup and handle here on the daily chart. If you look at the 1 hour time frame now, for OKLO, now the level I'd like to see hold is going to be your 51. 51 is going to be key for me. Hold for this continued push back up and towards. It's going to be this 58 and potentially 59 here. So keep an eye out on your 51 key psych level. And now you can also mark out your previous day highs here as well. As for HIMS, right, HIMS, similar thing. So HIMS, nothing has changed too much. I've been talking about this 52 level that I basically has to hold if you do want to see continuation higher. Similar thing to OKLO. It's kind of this cup and handle, right? A little bit of consolidation. So I still consider this kind of a cup and handle, but a little bit more consolidation. I like to see it hold above your 52. Consolidate a little bit more once you're able to reclaim back above your 58. I like to see this push back towards the upside here. So for HIMS, the levels you can have just drawn out is going to be this right here. This is kind of your box. So consolidation a little bit more. If we can break back above your 58 and hold, we can see this nice push back up and towards right 62 and potentially your 66 on the higher time frames. As for AVGO, this one recently hit all-time highs. Now we're having a little bit of a retracement here after earnings, but this one's still very much bullish here on the higher time frames. We ended up just sweeping out your earnings low. So this is your earnings low here on AVGO. Now, if you can reclaim back above your earnings low, next levels is going to be back up in towards your 250 here. So earnings low is going to be key here. If we reject, we're just going to continue back down in towards your previous day lows. But if we can reclaim, which there's a better chance of the market reclaiming, you can see this push back up in towards your 250 here, right? Higher time frames are still very much intact if you're on the daily chart, right? Your daily high, right, we're still building up higher lows. So as long as you maintain now, it's going to be above this 235. You should still be very much bullish here on AVGO. Okay, let me go over a couple more tickers. As for Reddit, this one's consolidating in between our 130 and our 104. So for Reddit, levels that we like to see break now is really above this 132. We can also draw kind of equilibrium where we're currently at. If you can hold your 117, we'd like to see this push back up and towards this high, which is your 130. So for Reddit, key levels I have marked out are 117 along with our 112. I personally like to see a hold of your 117 for a push back up and towards your 122. All right, let me kind of scroll down here. Let's see. Yesterday I went long. How can we watch you trade live? That's one's in the description. Let's see if any forward movement. Palantir. I went over that one. Yesterday I went long on Tesla after break and retest of previous day low upside, but exited really early, seeing Tesla showing no strength and went in favor. Can you please share your thoughts on? So Tesla, right? A lot of these moves have been happening based off the higher time frame. So if you're on the lower time frames on the 1 minute chart, you're not going to be able to capture something like this just because it's based off the higher time frames. Similar to me, right? I was on the lower time frame, so I was really only on the 1 and 5 minute chart. So if you're on the 1 minute and 5 minute chart, primarily you're day trading. You're looking for, right, either your gap fills or you're looking for some sort of objective, which is, right, of course, not going to be your previous day highs and above. So if you're looking at this name, you're going to have to manage this on just the higher time frames. You're going to have to be on the 15-minute chart minimum. And that's what a lot of these moves have been happening on is, right, the 1 minutes have been fairly slow just because there's not as momentum, right? I would consider this momentum, but just not on the 1 minute chart. This happened on the higher time frames. So really, you want to be paying attention to trades on the 5 minute and the 15-minute if you are looking to capture a higher time frame thesis, right? And what happens when you're managing a trade on a 5 and 15-minute, right? It's just going to be more risk because you're leaving more room. All right, let me scroll down here as well. Let me go over a couple more tickers and then I will get ready for market open. So for Hood, I'm still very much bullish on Hood. I really wanted to see it come down and retest this 66.90 here, but it seems like it just filled this daily gap. Now we're already pushing back towards the upside. So for Hood, as you can see here, we end up reclaiming back above your 73 right away. So your 73 right away. This one, as I mentioned, right, key levels you're going to have marked out. Your high, you're also going to mark out the low here. We end up taking out your low. Now we're pushing back up above your 73. So if you could hold your 73, potentially consolidate for the next couple of days, I would like to see a Hood push back up and towards your 78 here and above. So for this name, higher time frame is still very much bullish. Now you just like to see the reaction that we have off your 72.50 on this one. AMD and Nvidia. Yeah, if you missed something, I most likely already went over it, so you can go back on the live. Right, if I go in order. So I go in order. If I'm already at this point where I'm talking about some charts that people have written down, I already went over all these ones, which is the futures, the indices, also all these tech names. So you can go back and watch it. Okay, go over TEM. So for TEM here as well, key levels, so far we are potentially having this kind of downtrend break after consolidating for a bit on TEM. Now the levels I'm going to have marked out is first your 68.74 along with your 72. So for TEM, now what I like to see is really the trade up and towards your previous day highs. And I'd also like to see, right, later into the session, right, break back above, potentially hold for a continuation back towards the upside. So key levels today, you're going to be looking for a potential move up and towards your 68.74. Apple oven dipped 8%. APP. Yeah, so for this one, key levels for APP, in my opinion, is now going to be, we have a couple key levels. We have this, which is just your daily high, right? 380, and then we also have a move down in towards your 352. I personally like to see a hold of this 380. We have multiple touches in this general area for APP. As long as we can maintain above your 380, I like to see this continue push back towards the upside. So far, you can see kind of dipped here on Friday's close, also yesterday here as well. So we'd like to see right higher lows still be built based off of your higher time frames and above this 336. Okay, let me go over my game plan once more, and I am going to call it a day and get ready for market open. So for the Qs coming to today, we're opening out fairly neutral, about 0.2%, close to your previous day close along with your previous day highs. As I mentioned, we already had a big push in the overnight session. So I'd be very cautious within the first 15 to 30 minutes just because we already met a lot of the main objectives overnight. So whenever this happens, where we take out your previous day highs along with your previous day lows, usually the first 15 to 30 minutes is quite choppy. So we're just going to wait to see what happens within the first 15 to 30 minutes. If you can have a very strong push right off the bat, reclaim above your previous day highs along with your Friday's highs here as well, I would actually be interested in looking for a potential move back up in towards your last week's highs. But the best area and the best reclaim level is going to be back above your last week's highs. So for the Qs, right, if we reclaim back above your 531, right, you could be looking for this trading opportunity higher low. The best opportunity in my opinion is going to come above your last week's highs, your 533 on the higher time frames here on the QQQ. As for ES, similar thesis. I like to see now the reclaim back above your previous day highs for a continuation back towards the upside. On SPY, this higher time frame is still very much intact. You can see the higher lows are being built, right? We're still holding key levels being your 598. If you can break above your previous day highs, hold, we can be looking for a continuation up and towards the highs here on this ticker. So keep an eye out on the reclaim above your previous day highs on SPY. As for my top watches coming into today, Tesla, I like to see, right, the hold consolidation, right? As long as you maintain above your previous day highs, we like to see a push up and towards your 322. This is basically where we dropped from earlier when we had news. So this is the level on this ticker. As for Nvidia, I'm not as interested in Nvidia today unless it shows a lot of relative strength coming into today or right off the bat. Key level is going to be this 144. As for Apple consolidation, we'll see if any more news events comes later into this week. Meta looks really good above, right? Hold above your 694 or the reclaim back above your 703. As for Amazon, this one, you like to see it break above your previous day highs. You could be looking for an opening drive play for a push up and towards your previous day highs and above. And then AMD, one of my favorite tickers here, hold above your 121. Preferably, I like to see the break above your 122 and a push towards the upside here above your 122.50. So those are the levels I have coming into today. A few other names, most likely I will talk about them on the watch list. So that's what I have today. I am now going to get ready for market open. If you guys do, I see some new people in here as well. If you guys do want to join the free watch list, that is in the description below. Just going over basically what I talked about here in a very short video. Now I'm going to get ready for market open here. Hope you guys did enjoy that. If you did, appreciate if you guys drop me a like and sub, and I will see you guys all tomorrow morning. All right, take care, everyone.